When it comes to someone's ability or willingness to pay or fund journalism, whether or not they trust the news organization can play into their decision of if they are going to pay for that news organization or pay for that journalism content. So let's take a look at how someone's ability and willingness to pay for journalism can be impacted by whether or not they trust that news organization. And first, we're going to start with some data from the Digital News Report from 2021. And they found overall that there have been significant increases in the number of people who are paying for online news in a small number of richer Western countries. But they also found that the overall percentage of people paying for online news around the world remains low. Now, when you look specifically at 20 countries and the percentage of people who have said that they pay for online news in the last year, what this survey found is that 17% of people have said that they have paid for any online news in the last year. And those country breakdowns, in Norway continues to lead the way with that. They did in the previous year with this survey and did again in 2021. And what the survey found is that 45% of people in Norway that were surveyed said that they have paid for any online news in the last year. The next greatest percentage for a country is Sweden at 30%. Then you have the United States at 21%, Finland at 20%, and then the Netherlands and Switzerland at 17%. There are lower percentages in France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. France, only 11% of people have said that they have paid for any online news in the last year. In Germany, that percentage is 9%, and in the United Kingdom, that percentage is 8%. What the Pew Research Center found in a survey they did in 2017 is that how a news organization is funded, whether it is a public news organization or a private news organization, can also impact an individual's ability to trust them or willingness to trust them. And so what they found is that in a majority in Western Europe, are more likely to trust public news organizations than distrust them. So a majority of people in Western Europe are more likely to trust public news organizations than distrust them. And you can see Sweden leads the way there, with 90% of people in Sweden say that they trust public news organizations compared to distrusting them. And it goes down, Netherlands number 2, Germany, Denmark, and 2 Denmark stations there, the UK, France, Italy, and Spain. Now, when you compare whether or not someone is likely to trust a public news company versus a private company, what this same survey by Pew found is that trust in public news media is higher than trust in private media in 8 of these Western European countries. Again, Sweden does lead the way, and there in Sweden, 73% of people say that they trust public news media more than private, only 11% saying that they trust private news media more than the public. And so trust in public news media is higher than trust in private media in 8 Western European countries. So how a news organization is funded, whether it is public or private, can impact potentially the percentage of people who trust in that news organization. So something else that we know is that people pay for products they trust. The trust problem and the lack of trust, so a problem of distrust, ties directly to sustainability and survival for news organizations. The Digital News Report also found that across much of Western Europe, the 18 to 24 age group feels least fairly represented by the media. So what that means when they feel as if they are very less likely to be represented by the media is that they are unlikely to pay attention to, let alone pay for, news that they often feel is both unfair or uninteresting. So what this is telling us is that the younger age group, this 18 to 24 age group of people living in Western Europe, they're saying they feel least fairly represented by the media. And what that is leading to is allowing them to be less likely to pay for news or pay attention to news. And something that the Knight Foundation and the Gallup poll found in 2019 is that if you explain the industry and how it's funded in its current economic situation, people are more likely to support it. So, what they found is that when provided information about the financial situation facing local news organizations and the ways in which local journalism supports a healthy democracy, responders were significantly more likely to donate to a nonprofit organization that supports local journalism. And so, what we recommend is if you want people to understand how your news is funded, you have to tell that story. And by telling that story, people will have a better understanding of how you are funded, what your financial situation is, and then potentially will be more likely to support you financially by being a member, by being a donor, by being a supporter, or by being a subscriber.